Is there a habit that you have been wanting to create, but you've been struggling with consistency? It could be hitting a water goal, not forgetting to hit the button on the dishwasher, taking time to clean up the entryway every day, or it could even be remembering to floss your teeth. No matter what habit you are trying to create, if you struggle to maintain consistency with your habits, I have 3 tips to share today that I think will help. Are you ready to stop the chaos, the stress, the overwhelm that's filling your life? I'm Renae Matt, and together you and I are going to build simple routines that are going to change your life. When you put these habits into practice, you're going to be able to organize your life in a way where you can be there for your family, pay off your debt, save money, your house can stay organized, you don't have to stress about what's for dinner, and you still get time for yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Routine Advantage Podcast. So, the topic for this episode once again came from our Facebook community. And I just want to take a quick minute to mention that if you want to join us in our free community, you can do that by going to theroutineadvantagecommunity.com, and it will take you to our Facebook group where you can join this free community. You can ask questions, you can start conversations, and just share things that are going on with you that relate to trying to get these habits and routines in place so we can feel more organized and in control of our lives. And it's also a great spot to ask questions that I maybe talk about on the podcast because sometimes a question comes up where it's like, okay, that might be easier to address on a podcast rather than just by typing it out. So this question actually came to us from Yukti, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but she said she was struggling to consistently take medicines or supplements. When we're focusing on a habit like this, we kind of want to break it down. Is it a simple habit or is it a routine? And then it will help us to learn what we're trying to put in place in our lives. So, the way that I think about it is that a habit is a singular thing that we're trying to do. So, it might be, like I just mentioned, flossing your teeth. It might be hitting a water goal. It might be just taking the steps to drink a glass of water before you eat anything. So it's a single habit that you are trying to put into place. Whereas a routine, I look at that as several habits paired together to create a flow of steps. And that's what we're looking at when we're creating routines. So today we're looking at just simple habits. So this is a great place to get started if you're not quite ready for a full routine. But when we're looking at single habits that we want to put into place, there are some little tips and tricks that we can use to help us do things more consistently and help to build that consistency over time so that we can start to make progress. And when we're looking at something like consistently taking medicines or supplements, we want to make sure we're not forgetting these things, but we're going to actually remember because sometimes we can have the best of intentions and we can have this really big goal to create habits that really move our lives in the direction we want them to go. But if we're forgetting to even do that habit, then it's not going to help us get any further because we haven't put any measures into place that are going to help us build the consistency with the habit because we're just forgetting to do it. At least that is for me anyway. So if you relate to that, then these are going to help you because these are what helped me. So, number one tip when struggling to stay consistent with a habit is to pair it with an existing habit. And this is a really common one. You've probably heard about sticky habits or habit stacking. But what we're trying to do is think about what you do in your day to day life that is already happening. So, if you are already brushing your teeth, then obviously that's probably a good time to floss your teeth. But if you are not putting your floss right next to your toothbrush, you might forget about it. Or if you have a commute, can you just use floss picks and put floss picks in your car? It sounds really weird, but if you know that when you get in and you grab a floss pick, like that's the habit you want to create, put those floss picks in your car. Don't grab them on the way each day. Have them already there so when you're driving, you can just pop one of those in your mouth and you're good to go. Like that sounds probably really gross for a lot of people, so I apologize. That's just an example of what I'm trying to say is you really want to Just look at what you're consistently doing over and over and over, like brushing your teeth, making your coffee, driving to work, putting your shoes on, getting dressed, going into your closet, all of these different things that you're already doing. If you are trying to build a new habit, always put it with something that you're already doing. Pair it with an existing habit, and that means that you are then habit stacking. So, something that's already a sticky habit, something you're already doing is called the sticky habit. And then when you pair something new with it, then you're kind of sandwiching it together and that becomes habit stacking. And if you do this multiple times, then you're really just building a new routine rather than a single habit. So that's what I like to look at it as. But that makes sense in my brain. And hopefully that will help you too. So if you're trying to do something new, pair it with a sticky habit that's already existing and stack it with it. And that will help to build that consistency so that you remember what to do. The tip number two is to schedule an alarm in your phone. And I know alarms, my sister hates alarms in her phone. She said they drive her nuts. I actually love them because it helps me to stay on track. We were actually at a Mud Girl run this past weekend, and I had alarms in my phone going off when we needed to get up, when we needed to start getting ready because you get chatty when you're with girls at a hotel all weekend, when we needed to go for breakfast, when we needed to leave for the run, when we needed to be there to check in, all these things. I had them in my phone. And I just took a couple of minutes to set up all these alarms. And then we were able to just visit and continue on, and an alarm would go off and then it would cue me to the next thing. And so we were able to be on time for everything we needed to be at. And same with going to church on Sunday, like everything, it was just all plugged into my phone so that we wouldn't be late for anything. And if I didn't do that, I would forget everything and I would be late for absolutely everything. And I have many years of testimony to prove that alarms do help me stay on track and they help me build the consistency because I have recurring alarms in my phone. So there are certain things that I want to make sure I'm doing throughout the week. And I have those alarms already preset in my phone as recurring alarms. So if you're going to schedule an alarm in your phone, you really want to make sure that you decide if you want it to be a sounding alarm or if you want it to be a silent alarm. And I prefer most of my alarms, if they're recurring, they're silent. Just because I don't really know exactly what's going to be happening that day, if I'm going to be in a meeting, if I'm going to be out in public and have these alarms going off, like I don't want that to be happening. But if it's something that I'm setting up right then, for, like in 20 minutes, then I'll probably keep the sound on to make sure it registers and I can actually hear the alarm going off. So it helps keep me on task. But when I set up my alarm, I also, when I choose it, because I'm reusing a lot of these alarms, I'm also naming them. So if I go in and say, for instance, like Yukti wanted to be more consistent about taking medications and supplements, I would probably go in and create an alarm and I would make it a silent alarm. And then I would name it because you have the ability to name your alarms. So when it pops up on your phone, it gives you the text and tells you what that alarm is for if you take the time to name it. And I think that is incredibly useful. I don't think that you should set an alarm without actually putting a name in it because you need to know when there's so much going on, you need to know what each alarm is for, especially if you're setting multiple alarms. So what I would do is I would name it in and I would put in all caps, I would put silent and then I would put like a little dash and then I would put take supplements. Because then when that alarm goes off, it's silent, it will pop up on my home screen. So even if I'm not on my phone, it'll just sit there until I pick up my phone next. And then that alarm will be front and center. And I have to do something with it before I can use my phone because I need to remove that screen. So, what in my case, what I would do is I would hit snooze, not stop. I would hit snooze and then I would go take my supplements because then next time that alarm goes off in, 5 minutes or 8 minutes or 10 minutes or however you have it set, the next time it goes off, then I can stop it and turn it off. And then I know that I took my supplements and I'm done. And if I didn't take them yet, then I would just snooze it again. And I would have it set to not end until you stop it. So it would just constantly snooze over and over, because then I would be able to, like, if I was busy doing something, I wouldn't stop it and then forget because I was still in the middle of a project or something. I would be able to just snooze it until I was able to go take my supplements, and then I can stop my alarm. And that's what I would do if I were to do this with supplements. Now, if I were to actually have a sounding alarm, instead of putting silent in caps in the beginning, I would put the name of the alarm. So I have one that is like an actual alarm sound, and then I have one that is like little beeps. And I obviously don't want to use the beeps alarm for my morning alarm because that's not going to be loud enough to wake me up. I want this to be subtle. I want it to be loud enough to be able to prompt me that something just came up on my phone, but subtle enough that it's not going to be super distracting if something's going on. So I would put beeps and then like leave at 8:45, or in all caps I would put alarm and then get up at 5:30. You know, that kind of thing. I just name all of my alarms. So then if I need to reuse one, I don't have to start from scratch. I know that I need a beeps alarm and I can just go and take one of those and then change the little wording on what it's telling me to do at that moment. And that keeps me on track so much throughout the day. I do this every morning when I check in for work. I'm always putting alarms for all of my meetings because I turned off all of my notifications on my computer so that it's not distracting as I'm doing my workday. So I want to make sure that I'm checking in on certain things through my work blocks. And this is a really great way for me to do that, is to be able to stay on track with all of my meetings, all of the things I need to do throughout the day. And it's just one of my biggest tips to build the consistency on any habits I want. So, working out, meeting, doing like the health check ins, taking supplements, hitting water goals, getting up and taking a walk, all of these things are built into my alarms. And it helps keep me on pace with all of my goals as I go throughout the day. So I think that is super helpful for me. If you're if you want to try it, you can. If you're like my sister and this thought just absolutely is like a no-go for you, then maybe this is not the best tip for you, but it is an option if you want to look at it. Tip number 3 is to track your progress when you're trying to create a steady habit. So, this is completely up to you how you want to track your progress, but seeing how consistent you are over a period of time is incredibly helpful, and I do recommend it. And how you track it is going to be completely up to you and how your brain works and what is the simplest method for you to track. So this is something to really consider because I love tracking and seeing my progression over time, but if I'm tracking too many things or if I make it too complicated to track, then I don't keep up with it. And I feel like everything is just kind of at a loss and I give up on it. And that's not what we want to do. We want to build the consistency. So finding a way to track that is simple for you and works well for you is a great way to do that. And I've tried a lot of different things. I've tried whiteboards, I've tried it in my phone. I've tried it in notes. I've tried it in notebooks. I've tried it in a planner. I've tried it in apps, like all sorts of things. But the ones that are super consistent for me is I really enjoy seeing it in my paper planner. However, I don't always go in to track my habits every day in my paper planner. And if I get a couple of days behind, then I go back and I look and I'm like, okay, like a lot has happened in the last few days. I don't remember what to track exactly because there's so much that has happened that I don't fully remember if I'm tracking accurately. So what I like to do is I use an app, and I use an app called Day Stamp. It's two words, Day Stamp. And what I like to do is I use that and I have set it up, and then I bring the widget onto my home screen and I use the widget to keep track because I see the widget every day when I open up my phone and I scroll over. It's on like the left side screen. And I look at that and all my apps are all, I'm sorry, all my widgets are on that screen. And what I do is I have all of the goals that I have linked into that widget. So when I am looking at my day, as I'm going throughout my day, or when I get to the end of the night and I'm looking at my phone, I can look at all of the things that I wanted to do that day in this little widget that's right on my home screen. I don't even have to open up an app. And so what I do is I just click the ones that I did that day, or I do it throughout the day as I complete it. And then I'm done and I move on to the next day. And then what's really cool about this app, and it's not sponsored, I just really enjoy this app. Really cool is then if I want to look at the consistency I have built over time, you can see like little reports and little colored dots of how many times you've completed it in the last month, or if you want to complete something multiple times a day, like maybe you have a water goal and you want to complete something, you want to drink this, big giant jug like 4 times a day, you can set that up as a four thing. So you have to click that button 4 times to make it complete the circle and get off of your screen. So that is all something that you can set up in an app like this. And there are tons of habit tracking apps. This is just one that I really like. But what I really like about it is that I can see the reports over time. So just to give you an idea of some of the things that I track in mine is a workout. I want to see how many times I'm working out each week. So I have a workout, hit 10,000 steps, complete my food log, Bible study, rosary, hit my water goal, and taking my supplements. So, those are just a summary of some of the ones that I have. I think I do have a couple more, but those are just the ones off the top of my head of what I know that I have on there. And the other thing to note here is that if you are tracking, keep it super simple. I did not start by tracking all of these things. I started with like three things, and that's all I was tracking each day. And over time, I was able to add in more because I can tell as I'm going through this, if I add too much and I put too much on my plate too quickly, I don't do any of it. And I have to give myself time to get used to one thing at a time. Once I'm consistent with that, I can bring in another thing. And the habit tracking has really helped me to see that so that I understand how my brain works so much better. So that is something that I think is really helpful when you are able to track your progress. It not only reminds you of what you need to get done, but it helps to show you the consistency over time so that you can see the patterns. Because if you're looking at those reports and you realize that Fridays and Saturdays are your struggle days for certain areas, then reconsider what you could do to help. If it's something that needs to be done every day and you're really struggling with Fridays and Saturdays, what are some changes that you could make that help you get those habits done maybe earlier in the day so that you're not waiting until the end of the day where you're tired and you're forgetting about these habits? So, it's just things like that where you can look and see if you have any patterns and then kind of test out some new things and see what works for you, see what doesn't work, and just continue making changes while being very interested in the pattern and not in the failure. So when we look at it in a different mindset, then we can make so many changes to our lives without the frustration and without the guilt that starts to creep in when we feel like we're not doing things the best that we can. So these are the ones that help me. If I'm really trying to stay consistent with a habit, these are the three things that I always go to. And this is what helps me to build the habit and to be consistent, especially long term with these things. So I hope that you take these into consideration and keep it simple. Don't overthink it. We can get in our heads so much about habits, and if we just really focus on what is important to us and keep them really simple, then we will start to make progress. And it's not going to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. So just remember that piece and just keep making progress. Don't focus on perfection. So, how can you make it easy on yourself? And if it's not in the three tips that I shared with you today, then are there any other things that you can do for yourself to help build consistency over time? So I want you to think about that. And I will give you a quick recap of those three tips that I use when I'm struggling to stay consistent with a habit that I think are super helpful for anybody that is trying to build that consistency. Is number one, pair it with an existing habit. Number two, schedule an alarm in your phone. And number three, track your progress when trying to create a steady habit. So I hope that was helpful for you and you can start building those habits. And I will catch you back here on the next episode. Did you love that episode or learn something useful? If so, would you do me a huge favor? My goal is to grow this podcast and help as many women as I can break free from the overwhelm so they can truly enjoy their life. The best way for me to do this is for you to leave a 5-star written review on your podcast app and to share this episode with a friend or in your Instagram stories. I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care.